Hey guys, Metal Viking 82 here, back to show some more plunder that I've acquired over the last little while. Got some indie scene support to show you today. I've said it before, and I will keep saying it. You've got to support your local scene. These bands depend on you to kind of get their music out there and sold and kind of get bigger. I've got 3 tapes and 4 CDs to go over this time, though I still have, a huge stack of CDs and this big old stack of tapes from my indie bands that I need to go over at some point as well. We're going to get started with the tapes here. First 2 are from the same band, and that is Feet Aside, a death metal band out of Fort Wayne. Not exactly sure when they formed. There was nothing on the archives and nothing on any of their social media pages. But yeah, we have Nurtured by Hate. And this is their debut demo put out independently, digitally by the band back in 2022. They released this tape edition, limited to 150 copies just last year. There was also a CD edition, but by the time I actually discovered this band, both of these were listed as sold out on their Bandcamp. And luckily I was able to track down a copy of this tape, and I'm really happy that I did. Yeah, this thing just has some thick, twangy, very dirty sounding bass. I love the intro to the track number 4, Kill Conceived Bastard Seed, with that heavy bass intro. Solid drumming, lots of nice patterns, rolls and fills, and some great blast beats on here. Fast-paced guitars with some more mid-paced sections at times. Now then, you definitely get a deathcore-ish riff that does pop up, such as in the 3rd track, Nurtured by Hate, the title track. At about 1 minute 34 in, that's definitely screams deathcore. Vocals are just these powerful low end growls. Killer demo. And then their follow-up, Promo 2023, definitely shows they are still kicking ass. They definitely have improved. I wouldn't say improved, but they have definitely gotten stronger as a band, I think, going into this demo here. This was put out last year on tape, limited to 100 copies, and I kept watching their Bandcamp and their Facebook for when these dropped, and I was glad I was able to get a copy. The bass is still thick and dirty sounding with that little bit of twang to it, easily heard throughout. The drums still sound killer. I love his double bass work and his blast beats. Heavy, fast-paced riffing for the most part, but yet again, they also like to slow things down for a nice, heavy, chugged section. Then when you get into the 2nd track on here, Adam's Apple Slices, that song starts with a very deathcore-ish riff before it just launches full speed throughout the rest of the song. Definitely a lot of nice grooves to be found on this demo, some of them with a nice Cannibal Corpse vibe to it, such as in the opening track, Scrotal Massacre, about 18 seconds in. That groove screams Cannibal Corpse, in my opinion. Vocally, still very powerful low-end growls, and this time he kind of adds in some more wretched screams at times. But yeah, very solid demo. Go check this band out. And the last tape is by a band that I've talked about a lot on this channel, and I will continue to talk about them because they are one of the best death metal bands going in our scene, in my opinion. And I'm very excited to finally own this on a physical format. But this is Flesher with the Murder Sessions demo. And of course, yeah, if you've not heard of Flesher by now, death metal out of Indianapolis, been around since 2022. This is their debut demo, put out digitally by the band that same year. And I kept saying at the time, you definitely need to put this out on tape. I would love to have this physically, but they were re-recording these songs for their debut album, and they were concentrating on working on that. And they just didn't feel like anybody would really want it, or whatever reason. But Sean over at Wise Blood Records finally convinced them to put this out. Limited to 100 copies. I love the tape because it looks like a tape you would find in a police evidence file. Very, very cool. And this particular version, because like I said, this was limited to 100 copies, but 50 came in what they called a crime scene bundle. So of course I jumped on that immediately. Comes with a toe tag, and as you can see, mine is number 50 out of 100, and everything came housed in an evidence bag. So yeah, very cool packaging for those bundles. And as far as I know, these are still available last time I looked. But in addition to that, the physical release of this actually has an intro the band wanted to tack on to kind of make it a little bit special instead of just having just the original 3 songs. And it's basically like news footage talking about these grisly murders that happened and everything, which definitely fits in with the overall theme for this demo. But yeah, I actually did a review of this. If you want my full thoughts, go check it out. But yeah, basically you get heavy, crunchy guitars, fast pace, but yet not afraid to settle into a nice, mid-paced, heavy groove that'll just cave your skull in. Thick and dirty sounding bass, killer drum work from Dustin, and Paul's powerful growls topping everything off. Absolutely killer demo. Go check it out along with their full-length album. And then I'm going to jump into the CDs here. This first one was a complete blind buy. I found this on eBay, and it was one of those things that I just went on there. I was like, indie metal CDs, and this popped up, and it looked interesting, but it was very hard to find any information on this band. So what I talk about is basically that's all I could really find. But this is Plunger with their self-titled. These guys were listed as hardcore / metal out of Muncie. Not exactly the years that they were active, but they are split up from what I could find out. This was their lone release put out by the band themselves back in 1998. Basically with this, you get fast-paced, dirty-sounding, crunchy guitars. It does have their more, mid-paced moments along with some nice chuggy grooves. When you get into the third track on here, Fallout, at one point there's this kind of high-pitched, almost Slipknot-ish kind of sounding riff that sounds cool, but it goes on just a little bit longer than it needs to, and it starts to get to the point it's a little bit annoying. Bass is thick-toned right up in the mix, really, laying down that solid backbone. And then when you get into track number 5, the closing track, Arrows Down, very cool bass intro to that song. Solid drum production with a bit of a high snap to the snare. I really like the kick sounds that he got, and I loved his double bass work. They definitely have a lot of heft to them. A lot of interesting patterns of rolls and fills. He doesn't really do anything flashy or anything, but he's never dull at the same time. And then, the vocals are that, hardcore style, a little bit higher pitch, not really that gruff style that you might think of when you think of hardcore. Excuse me. And also has some clean vocals that actually pop up here and there, such as in the closing track, Arrows Down. Overall, pretty decent. I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking or anything, but it was a pretty cool addition to the collection. Next up, Purulent Infection, Exhuming the Putrescent. Yeah, this is a one-man brutal death metal / grindcore project out of Lafayette. Been around since 2006. They are currently listed as unknown, so I don't know if this is still going or if he's put it to rest or what. But this is the project of Kyle Crispin from Protrusion, Sarcophagy. He's formerly of Catatonic Atrocity, among others. And this is actually a pretty decent album. Thick tone bass that sits a little bit lower in the mix than the guitars, but it's still easily heard throughout this whole thing. The guitars themselves definitely have a lot of Dying Fetus vibes. Just listen to that riff and groove in the opening track. Amniotic spewage at about 2:15. Mid to fast pace with some tremolo sections that are in there. Some nice chuggy grooves. Drums definitely have that rehearsal room production to them. They could have stood to be higher in the mix, in my opinion. They still have a good snap to the snare, and I love the kicks and the double bass work. Some really nice nice blast beats on here, but like I said, they definitely need to be a little bit higher up in the mix to be heard a little bit better. Vocally, you get a lower register, but not quite guttural growl with these absolutely nasty retches and screams at times. So yeah, if you're a fan of brutal death metal and grindcore, go check this one out. Next up, Desecryptor with Vortex Oblivion. More Fort Wayne metal here, another death metal band. This one been around since 2016. This is their debut full length put out last year by Blood Harvest. When you listen to this one, you get thick, twangy bass, really cuts through the mix in the 5th track on here, Omen of Terror. Solid drumming with lots of good patterns, rolls, and fills. I love the double bass work and the blast beats on this thing. Definitely has that old school death metal style guitar to it, mid to fast pace, but does slow it down a bit in the 3rd track, Festering Ulceration, for a really slow and heavy groove that just absolutely gets the head nodding. You also get these, wailing, whammy bar style riffs at times, and some riffs even have some dissonance to them. They definitely have a little bit of a dissonance feel to them. Vocally, you get these low kind of cavernous growls that at times sound very distant, like they're far off and you're just barely catching them, but I still love the way they did them. Absolutely killer death metal release. Go check it out. And last but certainly not least, we have Necessary Death with their self-titled death metal, grindcore, crust punk band out of South Bend. Been around since 2022. This is their debut EP put out by the band themselves just back in 2022, excuse me. And yeah, this thing is an absolute banger. Thick bass laying down that solid backbone, combined with some just absolutely killer drumming with lots and lots of blast beats. Heavy, crunchy, buzzsaw tone guitars drive this EP. It's mostly fast-paced with some more mid-paced moments, definitely, and solos that sound like controlled chaos is the best way to describe them. Topping everything off of these low-end growls with these occasional wretched screams. Absolutely badass release. Go check this out. They actually just released a split with the Texas grindcore band Noisy Neighbors that I've actually heard digitally, and I definitely cannot wait for them to release a physical copy of it. So yeah, that is going to do it for this indie scene support. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing, and until next time, stay brutal.